ordinary everyday consciousness that we have leaves out more than it takes in. The ordinary everyday consciousness that we have leaves out more than it takes in. And because of this, it leaves out things that are terribly important. It leaves out things that would, if we did know them, allay our anxieties and fears and horrors. And if we could extend our awareness, you see, to include those things that we leave out, we would have a deep interior peace. Because we would all know the one thing that you mustn't know. The ordinary everyday consciousness that we have leaves out more than it takes in. The ordinary everyday consciousness that we have leaves out more, you know, according to the rules of our particular social game. The one thing you mustn't know, that's really not allowed, but is the lowdown on life. And then the lowdown, on the one hand, means the real dirt on things. But the lowdown is also what is profound, what is mysterious, what is in the depths. And there's something left out. And our everyday consciousness screens this out in the same way that when you say you have weaving, you have, say, on this rug here in front of us, when the black finishes here, the black threads will go underneath and then appear again over here, then they'll go underneath the white and then they'll appear again over here, you know? So that the back will be the obverse pattern of the front. Now, the world is like that. The ordinary everyday consciousness that we have leaves out more than it takes in. The ordinary everyday consciousness that we have leaves out more. Our sense organs are selective. They pick out certain things. They're receptive. For example, we have a small band, what you might call a spectrum of light, of sound, of tactile sensation, and so on, to which the human organism is sensitive. But we know that outside that small band, there is a huge range of vibrations to which we have built instruments that are sensitive. Things like cosmic rays, ultraviolet rays, gamma rays, hard X-rays, and so on. They're all outside the band of our spectrum. And obviously, there are things that are outside the range of our instruments. We may build new instruments someday which will evoke, bring into our consciousnst other orders of vibration altogether, but yet, as yet, we don't know about. So you could imagine, you see, the universe is a vast system of vibrations and has infinite possibilities. The ordinary everyday consciousness that we have leaves out more than it takes in. The ordinary everyday consciousness that we have leaves out more. The ordinary everyday consciousness that we have leaves out more than it takes in. The ordinary everyday consciousness that we have leaves out
takes then.
All these vibrations, you know, are like the strings on a harp. And the harps that the angels are supposed to play in heaven are really this huge possibility. See, when you play the harp, you select strings. You don't play all the strings. It's stupid to just run your finger along the whole edge of the harp, back and forth, and go. What you do is you pick out with your fingers, select just like on the piano, you know, go. You pick out certain notes, and these make the patterns. But at the same time as you pick out, you reject what you don't pick out. But it's all there, constituting a fundamental continuity, the kind of continuity of the thread as they go to the back of the woven material and make up the obverse of the pattern that's on the front. Now, the question that is absolutely basic for all human beings is, what have you left out? What have you left out? What have you left out? Really? You are focused on certain things that constitute what you call everyday reality. Look, you single out people and you see them sitting all around. Sitting all around. And you know there are things that are really there. And then behind the people are the houses or whatever we live in, the earth, and behind all that, the sky, and so on. But we see the world as a collection of rather disjointed events and things. And I might say to you as you came in here today, now, my goodness, you all forgot something. What did you forget? And you think, my goodness, did I put my pants on? Did I wear a sweater? Did I put my glasses and my hair on, or my wig or whatever? No, it's none of that. Or something you forgot. See, everybody's forgotten something. See, we left it out. Just missed it. See? And so I can bring this out, what you've forgotten, if I ask you, who are you? Well, you say, I'm Paul Jones, or whatever your name happens to be. I say, oh, no, don't give me that stuff. Who are you, really? Who are you? Who are you? Who are you? Who are you, really? And you think, whoa, of course I'm just me. No, don't give me that. I don't want to hear all that nonsense. You're playing a trick on me. Really, deep down, who are you? I don't know. Well, that's the thing to find out. That's the thing that's been forgotten. See, that's the underside of the tapestry, the thing that's been left out. Because what we are carefully taught to ignore is that every one of us, fundamentally, deep inside, is an act of, a function of, a performance of, a manifestation of the works. The whole blinking cosmos, with all its galaxies, and forever and ever and ever, whatever it is beyond that. What you might call God in the Western tradition, or Brahman in Hindu philosophy, or Tao in Chinese. Every one of us is really that, but we are pretending we aren't. And we are pretending with tremendous skill and deception. Who are you? Who are you? Who are you? Who are you really? Now, what I would call a really swinging human being is a person who lives on two levels at once. He's able to live on the level of being his ordinary ego, his everyday personality, and play his role in life and observe all the rules and so on that go with that. But if he's only on that level, if he's only playing that kind of thing and thinks that's all there is, it becomes a drag. And he starts being the kind of person who feels that he's just got to go on surviving. It's terribly important to go on surviving. Live. He works at that. And his children learn the same attitude from him. He says, well, I've got to survive because I've got all these children I've got to support, and so on and so forth. And then they take the same attitude. They breed up children, and they feel compulsive about supporting them. They've got to go on. And so nobody really has any fun. It's just we've got to make this thing, you see? And you don't have to. See, whenever I get somebody who comes to me and says, I really can't go on and I have to commit suicide, I say, well, that's entirely, you're right. There's really no reason why you should go on, and if you want to commit suicide, do it. You can check out. Of course, this reduces anxiety when they feel free to commit suicide. They don't really have to commit suicide so much. You know, side.
Akira. He's got clout.
The sense that you just have to go on living. That life is a must. When you say to anything spontaneous, see, life is spontaneous. It happens, in the words of the Taoists, Ziran, which means of itself so. That's their Chinese expression for nature. What happens by itself, what isn't pushed, but it just pops up, you see? You came into being, you know? It happens in a kind of a plop way like that, see? Now, you can't tell that process. You ought to happen. You must happen. Because that puts a bind on it in the same way as when you have a child and all the relatives have come to a party on Thanksgiving, the child into the middle of all the relatives and say, now dear, play. Now dear, play, play. Now dear, play, play. Play on demand, play on demand, play on demand, play, play. Say now dear, play, play. Now dear, play, play. Play on demand, play on demand, play on demand, play. See, it absolutely bugs the child to do it like that. And so this is the problem for every artist. Because an artist is a man who makes his living by playing. Whether he's dancing, painting, or playing music, or whatever it is. And he has to overcome this problem. He has to know how to play in public at a given time on an appointment. See? Now that's not an easy thing to learn. But when you catch on to the trick of it, you can do it. To play on demand. That's the hardest lesson of life. To contrive what is called by my Japanese artist friend Saburo Hasegawa a controlled accident. Now dear, play, play. Now dear, play, play. Play on demand, play on demand, play on demand, play, play. Say now dear, play, play. Now dear, play, play. Play on demand, play on demand, play on demand, play, play. Now dear, play, play. Now dear, play, play. Play on demand, play on demand, play on demand, play, play. Say now dear, play, play. Now dear, play, play. Play on demand, play on demand, play on demand, play, play. The thing is that we have been educated to use our minds in a certain way, a way that ignores or screens out the fact that every one of us is an aperture through which the whole cosmos looks out. Every one of us is an aperture through which the whole cosmos looks out. You see, it's as if you had a light covered with a black ball, and in this ball were pinholes, and each pinhole is an aperture through which the light comes out. So in that way, every one of us is actually a pinhole through which the fundamental light, that is the existence itself, looks out. Only the game we're playing is not to know this. To be only that little hole, which we call me, my ego, my specific John Jones, or whatever. Every one of us is an aperture through which the whole cosmos looks out. Every one of us is an aperture through which the whole cosmos looks out. If we can maintain at the same time the sense of being this specific John Jones with his role in life, or whatever, and know also underneath this that we are the whole works, you get a very marvelous and agreeable arrangement, a most remarkable harmoniousness. I mean, it gives one's life a great sense of joy and exuberance if you can carry on these two things at once. If you, in other words, you know that all the serious predicaments of life are a game. Every one of us is an aperture through which the whole cosmos looks out. Every one of us is an aperture through which the whole cosmos looks out. Now, I want to put it two ways. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, something to be condemned, to take your own individual life seriously, in dead earnest, and to have all the problems that go with that. Do you understand that being that way, that being a real mixed up human being, is a manifestation of nature? That is something just like patterns on the waves out here. Patterns on the waves. Patterns on the waves. Patterns on the waves. Patterns on the waves. Or like a seashell. You know, we pick up shells. I always keep one around, sort of an example. many things, say, my goodness, isn't that gorgeous? There's not an aesthetic fault in it anywhere. It's absolutely perfect. Now, I wonder if these fish look at each other's shells and say, don't you think she's kind of fat? Oh my, those markings aren't really very well spaced. Because that's what we do. Patterns on the wave. Patterns on the wave. That's what we do. Patterns on the wave. Patterns on the wave. That's what we do. See, we don't realize that all of us in our various goings-on and behavior and so on are just as much and more marvelous, much more complicated, much more interesting. All these gorgeous faces that I'm looking at. You know, every one of them. Some are supposedly pretty, some are supposedly not so pretty. But they're all absolutely gorgeous. And everybody's eyes is a piece of jewelry beyond compare. Beautiful. 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 Patterns on the wave. Patterns on the wave. That's what we do. Patterns on the wave. Patterns on the wave. That's what we do. We have specialized in a certain kind of awareness that makes us neglectful. You see, we specialize in more or less briefly concentrated, pinpoint attention. We look at this and we look at that, and we select from all the things we might possibly be aware of, only certain things. And as a result of that, we leave out of our everyday consciousness one amazing beauty of experience that we never see at all. And on the other hand, the very deep thing, the sense of our basic identity, unity with, oneness with the total process of being. See, because we are staring, as it were, at certain features of the landscape, we don't see the background. And because we get fascinated with, you know, I could go into details of this shell, as I said, and put myself in the mind of a conch or whatever it is that lives in this thing, and to say, that's not so hot, that one, like that, see? And so I wouldn't see the whole thing. But when I look at it like this, when anybody looks at it like that, we say, oh my God, isn't that gorgeous? 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 Another way of talking about the web is that there are different levels of magnification. For example, supposing you take a piece of embroidery, and here it is, obviously in front of you, an ordered and beautiful object. Then you take out a microscope, and you look at the individual threads. At a certain point, as you turn up the microscope, you'll get a hopeless tangle. It doesn't make any sense at all. The wrapped fiber that constitutes the thread is a mess. Hasn't been organized, nobody did anything about it. But at the level of magnification at which you actually see it with the naked eye, it's all been organized. It's all been organized. It's all been organized. It's all been organized. All right, now keep turning up that microscope. Take one of those individual threads in the fiber that seems to be so chaotic and go into the constitution of that. And again, you will find fantastic order. You'll find the most gorgeous designs of molecules. Then keep turning it up. And again, at a certain level, you'll find chaos again. All right, keep going. And at another level, you will find this marvelous order. Now you see, order and randomness constitute, in other words, the warp and the woof. Where everything is in order, everything's under control. In randomness, it's all been organized. It's a mess. 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 But we wouldn't know what order was unless we had messes. It's the contrast of order and messes that order itself depends upon. And so in exactly the same way, it is the contrast of on and off, there and not there. In other words, life and death, being and non-being, that constitutes existence. Only we pretend that the random side of things, the disorderly side of things, could possibly win in the game of competition, or I would rather call it collaboration between the two. When you lose sight of the fact that the order principle and the random principle go together, that's exactly the same predicament as losing sight of the fact that all individually delineated things and beings are connected underneath. You know, just like mountains stick out of the earth and there's the fundamental earth underneath them, so all of us as different things, we stick out of reality. And there's a continuity underneath, but you ignore that. See, that's the thing that's left out. It's all been organized. It's a mess. 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 See, I'm just giving you many examples of the same principle.
Akira. He's got clout.
Really, deep down, we are, each one of us, everything that there is. Doing it this way, and again that way, and again another way. Doing it this way, and again that way, and again another way. Really, deep down, we are, each one of us, everything that there is. Doing it this way, and again that way, and again another way. And that's what it keeps up doing forever and ever. Only, it has holidays, which are called deaths. You know, in the story of the creation of the world in the Bible, God works for 7 days and rests the seventh. It's necessary to have a holiday. Holidays, holy day. The point is that a holiday is pause between something going on, is of the essence of the idea of a web. A famous Irishman is supposed to have described a net as a lot of holes tied together with string. So the holes are very, very important. These are the holy days. You see the holes? This all goes together. Really, deep down, we are, each one of us, everything that there is. Doing it this way, and again that way, and again another way. Doing it this way, and again that way, and again another way. Really, deep down, we are, each one of us, everything that there is. Doing it this way, and again that way, and again another way. And that's what it keeps up doing forever and ever. So, there must be that interval. And it exists on all kinds of levels. It isn't simply that there is, for example, a sound that is sounded is a vibration. And the sound goes on and off. Everything that we call sound is sound silence. There is no such thing as pure sound. You couldn't hear it. What you hear is that tap, 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 tap against the eardrum. But it happens very fast, so that you get more of an impression of sound than you do of silence. That between every little undulation of sound, there is also an interval. When you listen to music, you hear a melody. When you listen to music, you hear a melody. When you listen to music, you hear a melody. When you listen to music, you hear a melody. When you listen to music, you hear a melody. When you listen to music, you hear a melody. Really, deep down, we are, each one of us, everything that there is. Doing it this way, and again that way, and again another way. Doing it this way, and again that way, and again another way. Really, deep down, we are, each one of us, everything that there is. Doing it this way, and again that way, and again another way. And that's what it keeps up doing forever and ever. When you listen to music, you hear a melody. When you listen to music, you hear a melody. When you listen to music, you hear a melody. When you listen to music, you hear a melody. But what you hear, actually, that makes the melody significant are the steps between the tones, what we call the intervals. And a person who doesn't hear intervals is tone deaf. He only hears noises. He doesn't hear the steps. So that interval between whatever happens is as important as what happens. So we'll call these two things, the sound and the silence, the life and the death, somewhat analogous in weaving to the warp and the woof. Now, look at the marvelous way in which warp and woof go together. A piece of cloth is an extraordinary thing when you consider it's made of a line of string.